My name is Emily Carter, and I've lived in Chicago for most of my life. I grew up in a loving but ordinary family, the kind that always reminded me to marry someone kind instead of someone who just seemed exciting. But like many people in their late 20s, I sometimes confused kindness with being too safe, too predictable, too boring. That's exactly how my story with Daniel began. Daniel wasn't the type of man who turned heads when he walked into a room. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't particularly tall or muscular, and he didn't have the kind of brooding charm that Hollywood rom-coms had taught me to look for. Instead, Daniel was polite, attentive, and had a calm, steady way about him. He worked as an accountant, lived a simple life, and cared deeply about his family. The thing is, when we first met, I didn't see those qualities as valuable. I was too busy chasing after the kind of men who made me feel like I was living inside a movie, charming guys who always knew what to say, who filled the air with excitement, and who often left just as quickly as they came. Daniel and I had met through mutual friends at a small gathering in Lincoln Park. He was friendly and easy to talk to, but not in a way that made my heart skip a beat. I remember thinking he was safe, and in my mind back then, safe meant uninteresting. Still, when he asked me out to dinner one evening, I said yes. We went to a cozy Italian restaurant on the north side, the kind of place with dim lighting, checkered tablecloths, and the faint sound of Sinatra playing in the background. Daniel was thoughtful. He had called ahead to reserve a table by the window, knowing it was a beautiful spot at sunset. Throughout the evening, he asked about my work, my goals, my favorite books, and even my favorite childhood memories. He wasn't trying to impress me. He was genuinely interested. But somewhere between the breadsticks and the main course, I heard myself say something I'll regret for the rest of my life. "You're really nice, Daniel. But you're not my type." The words hung in the air like a crack in a stained glass window. He looked at me for a moment, his fork resting quietly on his plate. There wasn't anger in his eyes, just a kind of quiet understanding. Then he smiled. Not a bitter smile, but one that seemed to say, "I understand more than you think." When the check came, I instinctively reached for my purse. But Daniel placed his card on the table before I could even unzip it. "No worries, Emily," he said softly. "Dinner's on me." And then, just like that, he stood, thanked me for my company, and walked out of the restaurant. He didn't try to convince me to give him another chance. He didn't protest. He didn't even look back. That night replayed in my head for months afterward. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself I had been honest, that I didn't feel a spark, and that honesty was better than leading someone on. But deep down, there was something about Daniel's reaction, his quiet dignity, his ability to walk away without bitterness, that gnawed at me. Life went on. I dated other men, the ones who fit the mold of my type. They were charming, exciting, spontaneous. But with time, their flaws outweighed their charm. Some ghosted me after a few weeks. Some treated me like an option instead of a priority, and some left me feeling lonelier than I had been when I was single. It wasn't until years later, after heartbreaks and disappointments, that I realized what I had done that night with Daniel. I had pushed away a man of true character because I was too immature to value what really mattered. One Sunday afternoon, I ran into our mutual friend Sarah at a coffee shop downtown. After catching up, I couldn't help but ask, "Hey, do you know what happened to Daniel?" Sarah smiled knowingly. "Oh, Daniel? He's doing great. He moved to Seattle a couple of years ago. Got married last summer to a wonderful woman. They seem really happy together." I froze. Married. Something inside me cracked. Not because I had any right to him, but because I finally understood. Daniel had been the kind of man who didn't wait around to be chosen by someone who didn't appreciate him. He valued himself enough to walk away the moment he realized he wasn't truly wanted. And that strength, that quiet dignity, had probably led him to someone who saw his worth right away. Meanwhile, I was still sitting there, sipping my latte, reflecting on years of dating choices that had left me empty-handed. For the first time, I admitted the truth to myself. The problem had never been Daniel. The problem had been me. I had been chasing illusions of romance, looking for fireworks, when what I really needed was the steady warmth of a man who cared, listened, and valued me. Daniel had been all of those things, but I had been too blind to see it. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought back to his smile at that Italian restaurant. A smile that carried no bitterness, only peace. I realized then that the greatest lesson Daniel had given me wasn't in what he said, but in what he didn't say. By walking away with quiet grace, he showed me the importance of valuing oneself enough not to settle for half-hearted love. And though I'll never get the chance to tell him, I carry that lesson with me every day. Sometimes the people we dismiss as not our type are the very ones who could have given us the kind of life we always wanted. And sometimes, by the time we realize it, they're already gone, building a beautiful life with someone else. As for me, I've changed. I no longer chase after excitement that fades in the morning. I no longer mistake kindness for weakness. And though my story with Daniel ended that night when he walked out of the restaurant, in a way, it was also the beginning of my growth. Because losing him taught me to never again overlook someone who is truly good for me. And for that, Daniel, wherever you are, thank you.